Today we're going to be replacing the water outlet on my wife's 2014 Chevy LT Cruz with a 1.4 liter turbocharged engine. So here's the part number, and here's the part. Now this is kind of fragile. It's made out of P6 plastic. Probably should be cast aluminum. You can see it comes with the bolts and the gasket. And it uses external Torx socket set. You should go ahead and buy one of these if you have one of these cars, because this is the second time I've done this. And you can see here I did a temporary fix on this. I just used some flex paste and that actually fixed it for a couple of days, but it's not a permanent fix. It actually cracked across here. The last one cracked right on the seam right there. Now what you want to do is go ahead and pull these off. Now I got regular hose clamps. The hose clamps that come with these things are this cheap spring ones. You want to check your radiator line, make sure that it's not cracked on the bottom. Now this line here, this is an aftermarket. You can see it's nice and stiff. The old one was this like bubbly. It was just not good. It attaches down here. This is also plastic, so you got to be careful. You also have this part here, which is plastic, and this return line will break really easy, so you got to be careful. I've read about that. I haven't actually done it, broken it. Now the indications this thing's bad, if you look down here on the transmission, this webbing will be full of orange coolant. Now the last time I did this, I pulled all this off. This is the intake. It goes down across the radiator over to the turbocharger and to the intake box. This is very stiff. It's also brittle, so I'm going to try to get it off without messing with this today. So you want to look at the old one, I mean the new one, and you'll see you got this connection, this connection, this connection, and then this is a pin that pulls, and you can put the that's for the return line. The torque on these is very light. If you don't have a torque wrench, you just choke up all the way on the wrench and right by the head and just kind of oomph it. It's not, because it's just a gasket, it's plastic. If you over tighten this, it will ruin it. I can see it does have inserts. This is a Dorman unit, not an AC Delco. My guess is they're the same. Dorman makes a lot of stuff for AC Delco. I don't know, don't care. So we're gonna go ahead and try to get this thing off. It's just 3 Torx. We'll get the size and let you know what size it is, and continue from there. So we've got the wrench set up. It's in, I don't know if I can get that to focus, an E10. And you can just use the new one to figure out your size. Okay, so we pulled this hose off, now I got to get to this hose, and we're going to use a 11-in-1, so it happens to fit the hose clamp size. Take the end off, one of my favorite tools, and we're going to go for this hose. Now I put regular hose clamps on this. If you were pulling it off the stock, it's going to have those springy hose clamps. You can reuse them if you want, or you can go with normal hose clamps. I was kind of thinking when I put this thing back together, so let me switch hands. The hose clamp is way the hell down in here, and hopefully I can get to it. If not, I'll have to use a socket. I can feel it. I can't see it, but I can feel it. Oh, I'm on it. So I'll just go ahead and pull that hose clamp off. Where's my hand? There it is. And then we'll pop that hose off. I'm going to need 2 hands for that, so you don't get to see that. Alright, I popped the hose clamp off, but this hose wraps around behind the engine. I can't really get it off. So we're going to go ahead and just pull the unit off. Let's pull this top hose off next. Let's just pull that pin. So I'll need to get a pair of needle nose. Alright, so just see if we can't get this guy out here. Out he comes. And then we should just pop that right off. If I remember right. There we go. I just go ahead and leave this clamped because, like I said, this is very fragile. You can break it right here very easily. In fact, they changed the design of that guy. So let's go get a wrench. There's also a cable connected to this thing, probably. There's this. If I remember right, that needs to pop off. And not sure, there's another thing below it, I believe. So yeah, that connector I was looking at's right there. So it's a snap in. So I'm gonna need to get some light on there so I can see what I'm doing. And we'll pop it loose. And then there's this connector here. I'll probably pop that loose after I get it loose if I can't get to it. Okay, so we're going after this connector here. If you look, it's just got a little push pin on the back. Squeeze it with the needle nose. I'm going to need both hands to do that, but you just come in there and needle nose this way. Let's give it a squeeze. You don't have to pull that little piece off with the needle nose after all. You'll notice it has a little vertical slide right here. You can just slide it straight up, it pops right off. Did that quite by accident. So we're just going to lift that up out of the way if we can. Might have to disconnect it. I'm going to try to do it without disconnecting it if I can, because I'm trying to do this with as little intrusion as possible. So getting to the connector down there, some light on that. Oh, that's going to be a bear. So we're going to go ahead and see if I can undo it. If not, then we're going to go ahead and pull it off and then try to undo it. Alright, that looks like it's just a squeeze connector. If you get down in there, I think if you just squeeze that little thing right there, it'll pull right off. Yep, that was just a little squeeze connector. So, just give it a squeeze like that, and it pops right off. Now I can't see any of these bolts, so we're going to go by this one. And I'll just feel around in there and I'll get the bolts out. It's going to take two hands, so you don't get to see that. Sorry. Basically, you just use this, just like that. Alright, we're on plan B. This is in the way of that bolt. We got to take that loose. I mean, this connector probably has to come loose, so we'll go ahead and pop that connector loose. Pull this back. It should just pop right out. In theory. Of course, theory doesn't work. Pop that out. And then the whole connector should come off. Come on. Yeah, maybe I can get to it without pulling that connector loose. We'll see. I think I can. No, the connector's got to go. Alright, I got to jack with this connector and take two hands. This one's kind of a tricky one, so pop that out. And then there's a button here. It'll come right off. And then we can get to this hose clamp. I'm going to need a regular screwdriver for that. Something long. Alright, so I'll just get in there like that with this regular screwdriver. Off she comes. We got to be careful with this thing, so I'm going to pop it off hopefully and just lift it up ever so slightly because it is really brittle. I don't want to break this thing. I don't know how much this piece costs, but it doesn't look cheap. It doesn't look cheap at all. So I'm going to need two hands to pop that off. So I backed it off and just put it above where it was. So now I should be able to get to the bolt down in here. And we can. I'm going to go ahead and pull that loose, and we'll go to the third bolt. Alright, so we've already loosened 2 of the bolts all the way. Get to the third bolt. That's the one that's in the back that you can't see. It's at the bottom. I already got on it, so I know it's back there. There it is. Oh, come on, stop being a bear. There we go. And then we'll just, I just got the extension and I'm turning it with my fingers. Come on. Oh, fluid's going to go everywhere. The first thing you take loose, fluid's going to go everywhere. Oh, I should have said that earlier. Because it's not at a, it's in the midpoint of the engine, so you're going to lose quite a bit of fluid. You're going to lose a lot of fluid. So you're going to want to let this thing cool down. Hopefully you're not already here and already found out the hard way that fluid's going to go everywhere. Okay, now this hose is still on there, the back hose. So remember the indication? There's your indication. That's what it looks like. So you can see fluid just running out of the engine. I'm going to pull this loose. You can see that hose is still attached. So we're going to pop that hose off. Going to take 2 hands. We'll get this whole thing out of here. All right, pop that hose off. So we're going to want to inspect that hose too. These hoses just don't feel that wonderful. I mean, they're the stock ones, but they're just not the kind of reinforced hoses I like. So there's the old one. And this is, I don't know what brand this is. That's the one I put in about 2 years ago. So if you look, these things, they got seams on them. This one doesn't have the seam. So the stock one has a seam. There it is. See that seam? I don't know if you can see it or not, but that seam can leak. That's where it was leaking before. There's a little pinhole right there. This one, this whole front was breaking off. It was a crack from here around to there. You could actually bend it down and watch fluid leak out of it. I'm assuming you could probably have the back part crack anywhere there's a seam. So you've got all these molding seams. They're going to be able to get pinholes in them. Jesus, this thing's a piece of crap. I really need to make it out of something better. So now we get the new one, we'll put it in. Just like that. And the first thing we need to do is get that little clip and put it on there. So I should have thrown it on the ground. There's the clip. So it needs to go. Where's the bottom of this thing? This way. No. This way. There we go. Focus, focus. So it needs to go vertical so that connector can slide on. So I just get some needle nose, pop it off, put it on the new one, same way it came out the old one. So here we go, nice and installed the new one. You're also going to have to pop this clip off here because it's going to be in your way later, so might as well just get it off. Now, one thing I've always made the mistake of doing is leaving the old clip just laying around. So we'll put that on the old one. Once I lose this one, I'll still have the old one. Come on, off you come, put him there. And then this will just go right back in. Put it back in, put the hose on so you can't get to the hose. Make sure the clamp's in the right position. I have mine with the screw part facing down so that I can get to it this way. And just make sure you can get to it. And then and that it's not rubbing on anything. And tighten it up just barely tight. I forget the specs on the tightness. You can look that up on the internet. It's inch pounds, so just barely tight. And I think that'll do it. We'll go ahead and get this thing put in. One thing I did not mention, if you look at these, it's got hose stops. Your hoses need to go all the way to those stops. On this one, it just goes all the way. So the stops, it's very important you get the hoses on all the way. Now we're going to hold these up to each other, see what's different about them. They look like they're almost out of the same mold. Yeah, here's the V, China. Oh look, there's a date code, 19061. Yeah, these things came out of the same mold. Yeah, they're identical. And here's the date code on this one, 2321. I'm assuming the last 3 digits is the day. First digit, 2 digits would be the year. So these two are identical. No differences. So we're going to just slide that down in there, and then we'll put the hose on it, and then we'll get it sidled up to the lid underneath and put the bolts in. I don't think you need to see me do all that, so we're gonna skip that. All right, so we got it all sidled up in there, got the hose on it. Now what I did was, the easiest bolt is the top back one, the one's hard to get to. Get it lined up, and then you slide this thing up and down until you get the second bolt lined up, and then we'll do the third bolt right now, hopefully. Which I'm going to have to do with a wrench because you can't even get your hand under there. So we'll just take this little bugger here and put it on in. You got to do that by feel. There. Oh, I can actually see it if I get it just the right angle. You can see down in there. There it is. See? There we go. Get it started and get it in there and get this thing seated, and then it's just a matter of putting it back together the way it came apart. Maybe I'll be able to deliver this to my wife at work before she makes it to lunch. That'd be sweet. You can see I'm just using the socket to make old man noises here. We'll get the one in the front. Trying to get to where you can see what I'm doing. Get that kind of tightened down, and then we'll just put the wrench on it and give it a little ook. Not too tight. That's what I mean by a little ook. So hold the wrench like that to tighten it. That way you won't over tighten. Oh, I had a whole section I did without showing what I was doing, without filming. So basically what I was talking about, get that in there, and you just use just like that on the wrench and tighten it up. Same thing on the second one. Any tighter than that, it's too tight. In fact, I probably over tightened it a little bit there, but you can look up the torque. It's in inch pounds. All right, so what we got left, put this back on, put that back on, put that back on, put these back on. But first, tighten this back hose back here, because you'll forget. Ask me how I know that one. So start with this hose, then we'll get this out of the way, put that connector on, then we'll work our way over here. Oh, and don't forget the connector down at the bottom. Easy to forget stuff. There's a lot of pieces. This connector down at the bottom, you can spin this bugger around to get it where you need it. And then remember, it goes button out, and we don't want the light falling in our face. Where's that connector? There it is. So it goes button out. And the light fell over. Don't care. Maybe I do care. I kind of need to see what I'm doing. Can I do this by feel? There we go. And it slides on. Pull on it. It doesn't come off. You got it in there. So next is this hose. Put that clamp on. Work our way bottom to top. So here we're putting that bottom hose clamp on. Alright. That's nice and tight. The connector's on. So basically we're looking at, we're going to take the one out. So we got that on. So we got this, and this left. So next thing is this guy. This is the intake from the turbocharger. There we go. And then I gotta use a regular screwdriver for that. Same way I got it off. Tilt that up. Oh. Might need 2 hands for this. If so, yeah, I'm gonna need 2 hands for this. Alright, so this is on. And make sure that's nice and tight because this is compressed air coming from the turbocharger. So if that's loose, you're going to have a leak on your turbo and you won't get as much boost. Then this one goes on. That button pushes in, goes all the way on. And then that goes in and it's attached. So push in the button, slide it on, lock this down. So the next connector is this little bad boy here. Switch hands. And then that just slides on down. Where's the slide? There it is. Oh, missed. It's kind of a pain because there's so many wires going to it. Missed again. And it helps to get it up high enough. I'm just going to take 2 hands. Alright, this is going to take 2 hands. Alright, upon further inspection, it will not take 2 hands. Get the light here. If you look at this guy, what the hell? There's me. Oh, look, it's. Alright, if we look at this guy, let's pull this up where we can see it. There is a little stop right there on the bottom. That means this thing slides up from the bottom, slides down from the top. That means I got to get it below the slide and then slide up. Alright, well that wasn't fun, but I got it in there. These wires, there's just so many of them and so tight. It's just a pain in the butt. So next we want to do this bottom one, and then we'll do that one, and we'll put the return hose back in, and we'll look it over real good and fill her back up and start it and see if it blows coolant everywhere. So you can't really see it. I got the bottom hose slid all the way on, and then we're going to bring that hose clamp up. It's going to take 2 hands probably. Bring it up about there where I can get to it real easy. I'll tighten that up with this guy. Switch hands. Where the heck is it even? There it is. There we go. I like to try to get them back in the groove where they came out of. And you gotta be real careful here because you don't want to break the Jesus plastic thing. So you can see it's all the way against the stop. So we'll do the next one. And slide it up all the way. I should slid the hose clamp up first. Come on, be nice to me. This hose clamp I'll put the other way. The reason I do that is so it doesn't block that lower hose clamp. So, I'm going to have to hold this. Now when you tighten this one up, hold it with one hand, turn the wrench with the other, so you don't break this off or break it or crack it or whatever. So you can see I got the 10-in-1 on there, 11-in-1, and you just back it up with your fingers, tighten her up. Okay, the camera's giving me fits. So that goes in there. Oh look, the new one's on there. So we'll pull that one out and we'll decide what we're going to do here. Oh, so there's the new one. There's the old one. It's got this little clampy do here. It pops off and then puts the new one on. Ain't nothing wrong with this. It's only 2 years old. It's going back in. It's from the same company, same model, same brand, same everything. I mean, I held them up against each other and they had the same die cast marks on them. Came out of the same die. All right, let's put water in this thing. Start it. So just so you know, there's my tool list right there. Ratchet with the socket, 11-in-1, the long-handled flat screwdriver, pair of needle nose. All right, always want to get Dex Cool. That's orange stuff. Do not put green radiator fluid in this thing. It will actually corrode it. It's got to be Dex Cool. And everybody knows you put it in here because new cars don't have any way to get this loose. Any way to fill the radiator other than through the overflow. I've already opened this. I gave this to my wife last week after we did the Flex Seal fix. So what we're going to do, we're going to fill this thing. We're going to overfill a little because the engine is actually missing radiator fluid. I know I said water earlier. That's just showing my age. So we're going to go ahead and fill this all the way up because there's lots of air in the system. And some guy playing with his Harley in the other part of the neighborhood. So I'm going to fill this thing all the way up because it's going to be burping. And we'll start it up and we'll get the light and we'll inspect it. Oh goodness, it's taking the whole thing. That's kind of worrisome. Not worrisome in that it's taking the whole thing, but worrisome is that now I'm out. I'll have to go to the store to get more if I need more. So you can already see it's gurgle, 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 gurgle because it's taking it in. So we're gonna let that gurgle for a while. When it's done gurgling, we're gonna start it up and see what kind of leaks we have. So if that part is bad, that's what you're going to see right there. I'm going to sop all that up. That way I can tell if this thing's leaking. Otherwise, you can't tell if it's leaking if you don't sop that stuff up. All right, now, this part. What I did, I cannot recommend. The fact that it was only 2 years old and I inspected it and it was fine. You want to make sure that little pinhole's in good shape. That's the main thing. That could be plugged. You definitely want to make sure that this thing is in good shape if you do what I did. I cannot recommend that. I say to replace it, but you know, do as I say, not as I do. All right, so you can see I've cleared that. Let's do a pre-flight check and get the old part. So here's the old part. Did that check, did that check. Tighten the bolts, check. Lower hose, check. Upper hose, check. Put that in, check. Put the clip in, check. Look at that one, yep. That connector's on, that connector's on, that connector's on, bottom connector's on. We should be able to start this thing up. She's done gurgling. Put the cap on it, and give her a whirl. You can see I've sopped all that mess up so we can see if it leaks. Alright, nothing's spraying me in the face. Can't see any gurgling, but it is getting lower. Spraying down there, spraying here, nothing spraying anywhere. So we're going to have to let the thermostat open up and let this thing get up to temperature. Now while we're sitting here talking about things, another thing that goes bad that I've had replaced on this thing is this little Jesus PCV valve here. Now this actually goes back to the tank, and we were overfilling it so it would get flooded with fuel. So make sure you don't ever top this car off, because this will flood with fuel. You have to replace it, and it makes a horrible tapping noise when it's bad. And it sounds like one of your valves tapping, but it's actually that guy tapping. And that's actually easy to replace too. Other than that, this has been a good car. Top speed, 113 miles an hour. It's got more pedal, but that's where the governor stops it, is 113. Let's have a look over here. We don't see any puddles. So far, so good. So we'll come back in a few minutes once it's warmed up and see how it looks. All right, she's looking good. Don't see anything going on there. Don't see anything going on here. This is at the right level. There's actually a little arrow right there. That's the level it's supposed to be when it's running. I think I'm gonna go pick up my wife at work. Give her a little surprise. Good lunch. Y'all be good now. Oh, one more note. If that thing's gone bad, do not nurse it along. It's only $35. Scrape up the money. Go mow a lawn. Do something. Get the money. $35. Don't blow your engine over that. If this engine blows, this car is totaled. Just letting you know. That engine is as much as the car is worth for a new engine. Don't let a $35 part ruin your car.